It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul and Mary Jo are here. We're ready to talk about Windows 10X, the Neo and the Duo, and a visit from Richard Campbell of .NET Rocks and Run His Radio. He's going to talk about his new .NET book. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly. Windows Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 663 for Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. Try the toasted ravioli. Windows Weekly is brought to you by CacheFly. Give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CacheFly's CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cachefly.com. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we talk about Windows weekly. And everybody get your Perel bottles out because I'm going to introduce Paul Thurrott. Paul is
I do have a little
dry cough, a little lassitude.
corona problem. No, it's probably not.
It's good to joke, right? Because
It's good to joke.
Because
Laugh all the way to hell.
yeah. Mary Jo Foley's
On our
also
way
here.
down.
All about Microsoft.com, the ZDNet blog. We had a lot of fun in beautiful St. Louis, home of the toasted ravioli.
We did.
So we thought, I don't know, what did you think, Mary Jo? What did you think the cuisine of St. Louis was famous for? What was it? I thought ribs.
It's
I
barbecue,
thought it was going
right?
to be something
Yeah.
bud related.
Then they, yeah, right.
Bug related.
Bud,
Jeez.
Budweiser. But,
Bud related.
Bud.
Okay.
I thought barbecue too, but they said, no, that's KC. It's on the other side
Yeah.
of the state.
Yeah.
We're famous for toasted ravioli.
That's
I
too
know.
bad.
It's too bad.
We have several really highly rated Applebee's locations.
The beautiful Lower Macungie Valley, famous for its
James
all-you-can-eat
Beard
breadsticks.
award-winning Applebee's locations.
Oh, my.
Oh, boy.
So, no, I just feel like with the coronavirus as the news, and by the way, I feel bad because our shows have been dominated by that, especially Sunday's Twit. And, I would love to talk tech,
Sure.
and we will, of course. In fact, Richard Campbell's going to join us later on in the show. But
Yep.
there is this litany of stories. The latest E3 canceled.
Right.
South
So actually,
by
we should hold
canceled.
off on this, though, because
You want to do a corona?
Richard has some interesting
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
firsthand
Yeah.
Oh, good.
coronavirus stuff.
He's from Canada where they have medical care, so
That's right. Right. Yeah, he feels safe traveling. It's weird.
No, I don't know why. You can go to London for $383 right now, round trip.
I know.
Leo, I'm supposed to go to Paris in about 2 weeks.
You're not going to Paris, dude.
Oh, I am going if I can. If they don't cancel that flight, me and nothing. It's going to be empty city. It's going to be like a video game where you walk around post-apocalyptic Paris. I can't wait.
Are you going to be able to come back, though?
So here's the problem.
You know what? Even better.
If you go right
Even
now,
better.
if you go to Israel, for instance, from anywhere outside Israel, 2-week quarantine before you're allowed to enter the
Right.
country. So you get off the plane. They go, right this way, sir. Your room is waiting.
Wow.
And I suspect that will become a standard soon in many countries.
Well,
you could face that in
I've
France.
seen the way that we handle immigrants. So I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk
I
about
don't need the walled off.
We'll talk about this.
I'm sure
with
it's good.
The Canadian will join us. He lives in the land of real news, so we'll talk to him.
Yeah.
Windows 10X. Oh, before we go, I just want to show you this. The Dell XPS 13 came, and I got the Dell Developer Edition because you know me.
Right.
So, but it did have, I thought, one of the worst versions of Linux I've ever used, Ubuntu. And I thought, well, if you buy it with Linux on it, it should work perfectly, right? And it kept dropping Wi-Fi and all sorts of stuff. So I put a different distro. I put Manjaro on it, and it's perfect, flawless, fast, good battery life. So I'm very happy. And I was saying this before the show began, but I'll say it again. I like this keyboard. It's a short travel keyboard, but Dell does something that Apple never did. They've got a little bounce at the end of it, and I feel.
I also noticed, Leo, you just opened the screen and it didn't break.
Not only did it not crack, It came on instantly.
Man,
Is
come on.
that spreading, that cracking thing? I mean, is it more?
So
and more?
no, we haven't been hearing any more.
Okay.
And I've been asking
That's
for
true.
updates and getting nothing. But
That's good.
That's
to know.
true.
yeah.
So it was, it's over. I do want to say, though,
just like coronavirus.
just so you know that I am not completely disloyal, my wallpaper is the Bing picture of the week.
Nice.
Very
Or the day.
nice.
And today it's a very adorable pair of polar bears, cubs, hiding in the snow. So if you haven't had a chance yet to go to Bing.com, you might want to go on over there.
Do it.
Do it.
I assume all of our listeners have already visited that site today. But I know.
Anyway, thank you for coming to St. Louis, Mary Jo. We really had a good time. Thank you to
That was great.
WWT. Wasn't it an eye-opener? I don't know how familiar you were with WWT before this, but
I wasn't. And now I'm like, how did I not know them before?
kind of my thought too. If they're an advertiser, so I knew a little bit about them, but I hadn't really heard about them before. And they have an amazing facility. They're also beloved in St. Louis. They just brought a new Major League Soccer team to town, and they're good citizens there. It's a really interesting story. So that was a lot.
And
of
we got to go in the data center. That was cool.
They have we've talked about the Advanced Technology Center. It's now like in 4 buildings. We went into one of them, the show data center. They even have a malware. They have a caged rack area. That's their malware area. They say is air gapped. Although I looked and there's a bunch of Ethernet going into it, so I don't know how air gapped it is. But still,
Yeah,
very
they had
cool.
everything in there.
Quarantine.
They had Azure, they had
Yeah.
AWS, they had Google.
Oh,
They had
man.
everything.
They had
I know.
every possible box.
They did.
Wasn't that there was that weird AWS box that looked like a little R2D2 unit or something?
Yeah.
Did it look like a little shopping bag?
It was yeah, it did. Everything is normal, rack U3, U5 rack mounted stuff. And this thing was just a little beige, like little cute rounded corner beige thing with a little screen on it. I don't know what it was.
It should look like their boxes that they send. I think that'd be funny.
Oh, that would be cute.
If it had a
Little Amazon
smile,
box,
a little smile on it.
with the blue tape around it.
Cute.
That would have been funny. All right, Windows. We got to get some work done here before Richard Campbell pops in. Windows 10X. I'm excited
10X.
about this. I hope this lives
I
up
am
to
too.
the hype.
I know, me too. So in February, they released the first emulator image and SDK for 10X. And yesterday, they updated it. So now if you go to the Microsoft Store, you can get the most recent version of the emulator and the emulator image preview so that you don't need to have a dual screen device to start testing your apps and developing apps. You can just use this emulator.
We should add an asterisk to that. The previously you had to be on the latest Windows Insider Fast Ring build. Now you can just be on a regular shipping version of Windows, which is great. But it does require Hyper-V, so you have to have Windows 10 Pro or better to run this thing.
And
So
as
if
I
you have
remember,
Windows 10
you have
Home-
to enable that in the settings, right? It's not on by default, I think.
It's in the feature. It's called what's
It's
it
in
called?
that
Feature. I always
features,
type in features to get
that
to it.
long features box that they have.
Yeah, Windows. If you start search features, the thing you're looking for is turn Windows features on or off.
Yeah. And it's called
technically a control
virtualization or Hyper-V. What do they call it?
Hyper-V.
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 Okay.
Yeah, they also have in this build that came out yesterday an early beta version of File Manager integrated with OneDrive and a bunch of bug fixes too. The main purpose, though, I think, was to make it so that Win32 apps running in the container have the same windowing model now as all apps that'll, like the single screen apps that'll run on 10X, right?
Which means, to be clear, I believe that
No
basically means
windows.
they can't be windowed.
Right.
So
They have to be
the
single
windowing
screen, right?
model, they have to use the full screen.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, so
It's
they
like
can
an
expand two
iPad.
screens.
No, because they're going to be
Expand your
small
screens.
devices, right?
Right.
I'm-
That's really the right way to do it. Yeah. But even Samsung has split screens. I mean, a lot of Android devices have split screens.
Right.
Instead, you get 2 screens.
Yeah, it's a real split screen. It's got a hinge,
It is.
a hinge in the middle.
Yeah.
So I had heard
Yeah.
rumors that Duo might be out sooner than we thought.
I
I don't
know.
know what that's based
So-
on, but
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think, you know what, if Duo does come out this summer, which is the rumor that Windows Central had, I would bet it would be developer devices only and a very small run, not like the launch of the retail device. Right.
The other thing I would tie it to is the release of Android 11, because if this thing ships in the summer with Android 10,
no. Yeah,
that's going to be really disappointing.
Yeah,
the dual screen support that's built that Microsoft is using doesn't come from Microsoft. It's part of Android, and Android 10 does have some support, and I assume Android 11 will have more. But one thing we do know about Android 11 is that it's coming to market more quickly than previous versions did. They shipped the first release preview or preview release, whatever, a month earlier than usual. And so maybe they'll be able to ship the final version in July instead of August, meaning you could actually have devices for back to school or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
Yeah, we don't know, though. I haven't heard that from any of my direct contacts. That's what they've been hearing at Windows Central.
Oh, okay. So it was just kind of a thing.
I mean, they could be right. They've been right on a lot of the stuff about Duo. So, yeah, could be. I would guess though, developer only, because you know what? If you're Microsoft, you want to do the big bang launch for holiday, right? So you want to have Neo and Duo together at last.
And you want to get a lot of apps ready for that new dual screen.
Yeah.
And Windows 10. Yeah. Or X, I'm sorry. Whether it's 10X.
10X. Not 1010.
1010. Windows Tauntaun. It's warm inside. Come on in. Rodney has a Surface Duo Facebook page. If you want to join it, search it out, Facebook groups.
Who?
Rodney. You know, Rodney.
Rodney.
Who's Rodney?
Rodney's just some guy in our chat room.
I see.
Rodney EJ. Hey, join our Surface Duo Facebook page.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
Nice.
Entrepreneurial.
What's new and what's improved?
Yeah, so I was actually really excited to see an update or emulator because the first one was so buggy and slow and unusable that it was terrible. And this one is buggy and slow and terrible, so it's great. Feature parity. It actually is. It is better. And like Mary Jo said, there's a new version of the. I take it to be like a UWP file manager app that has OneDrive integration. It feels a little more restrictive in a way because, like she said too, you know, they have this new windowing model. So when you run an app, it forces itself to go full screen. And if you look at the newer apps, and oddly, Microsoft Edge, which is a desktop app, doesn't have that the three window buttons up in the right corner. So it's minimize, maximize, and restore, and then close. The modern apps, like the UWP apps, don't have that middle button. It's just minimize and close. And Microsoft Edge, which is a legacy desktop app, really, right? It's based on Chrome, et cetera, does not have that middle button. So it suggests that they've been building this thing with the knowledge it would run on 10X. And when it senses that it doesn't display that because it is a desktop app. It's not like it's a UWP app. But it's slow because it's an emulator.
Yeah.
Right. What processor is it emulating?
It's not.
Gonna be ARM?
It passes through the processor you have on the.
No, I understand, but it's the Duo itself will be an ARM. Will it be a special ARM?
No,
do they say?
Well, this is.
Yeah, this emulator is for the Neo only.
This is a Neo emulator. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is.
Yeah.
And that would be
so this
Intel,
is Windows 10X, which would be on Neo, but it's Intel. It's going to be Intel based.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it were ARM, right? They said it's.
Leo, I'm surprised you confused Duo on Neo and Windows 10X because no one has ever done that.
Right. I do it every time I write a story about it. I'm like, wait, no.
It took me a second because you said Duo and I was ready just to go with it.
I apologize.
No, don't. It's incredibly confusing. And
which one took the red pill, Duo or Neo?
Yeah. The red pill was probably Duo.
No. See, it's confusing.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
it is.
The question of the day. I don't know who asked this question, but I'm going to ask it. Does Windows 10 solve the Chromebook problem, Mary Jo Foley?
I say no, not until we see some clamshell laptops running this thing and not these likely very pricey dual screen devices.
No student is going to want this, really. Right?
No.
Well, I mean, so I will say this. Remember, if you go back to when Windows 10s launched, when Terry Myerson announced it at that education event.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it was going to be on a bunch of these low-end education devices, but he really wanted it to be on premium devices as well, and that's the reason that it shipped on the Surface laptop, the first version. Right. And Microsoft intends for this system too to split both worlds, and it sounds like a strange thing. You know, we're going to put it on these cheap $300 laptops, and we're going to put it over here on this really expensive, Maserati type PC. And people think, well, hold on a second. Why would we want the same thing between both? But really, if you're an executive or any kind of user, really, I mean, who doesn't want simplicity? I think that eventually it can serve both needs. But Mary Jo's right. I mean, right out of the box, it's going to be relegated to these dual screen devices only. So it's going to take a while. But every time I look at it with an eye toward that future, and one of the things I was able to do in signing in with my Microsoft account was actually get that version of the start menu where you have your recent apps and your recent documents as well. And it's interesting. I can't, it's too slow to sit there and actually use it, but just seeing how that works, I was like, this is just a good UI. Like, this is something I think would work well on virtually any kind of computer.
Yeah, me too. I love that UI. Like, we keep talking about the Android launcher type UI and the launcher that's going to be part of 10X. It just makes sense, right? This is what do you want to do when you pick up one of these devices? You want to find your app really fast and your document that you were just working on right there.
Get going again on the thing you were working on. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. When we first heard leaks about 10X, when it was called Windows Lite and then it was called Santorini, every time we heard a leak, it was saying, this is Microsoft's Chrome Compete initiative. But right now, I wouldn't say that, right? Like, if you just relegate it to a device like the Surface Duo, which Microsoft could say is, the Neo, which Microsoft could say is an education device too, it's not really that competitive, right? It's competitive with those Chromebooks. What were those called? The really high-end Chromebooks that nobody wanted because they were like thousands of dollars. Yeah, Pixelbook. It could be like that, right? Mm-hmm. But the real reason you want a Chrome Compete is the simplicity, number one, the easy to update manageability story, number two, and you got to have the cheap durable hardware.
We've speculated before that one of the reasons they went with dual screens was to kind of have a limited audience where they could test this new system and see how it worked. But there might be another aspect to it because they tried in the past with Windows RT, with Windows 10s, to come out with this simplified version of the existing version of Windows. And then they slapped it on these devices that were very familiar. And so when you had this thing that was unfamiliar running on a familiar device, it didn't really resonate with people. They got upset that it couldn't do all the things they wanted to do. And so by putting this thing first on a dual screen device, no one's going to confuse this for a PC. Even though it does the reverse, it will actually it will run those apps.
That's very clever.
It may run them slow. We don't know for sure, but
that's smart.
I think that might be another piece of this, like, because Microsoft has known for a long time. I mean, for a long time, that they need to simplify Windows, and they've been trying, but nothing they've done has worked so far. And so I think this is kind of possibly a, I don't mean to say sneaky, but kind of a sly way to get this thing out the door. It doesn't matter if a bunch of people don't use it right away because it's a new type of device. Right. But if they get enough feedback that this is working, that it makes sense, then they can think about putting it onto mainstream or familiar PC form factors.
So you think eventually it will? It's not.
Yeah,
well,
I do.
Said it. I mean, they've said they have marketing documentation that says it will be coming to. I think they said clamshell form factor.
So what's funny about that? That was a leak. In October last year, there was it was a designer who works for Microsoft who had a whole portfolio about how it's going to look when it comes to clamshells. If you ask them about this, they say there's no intention right now of doing that. That's their official statement.
They say all kinds of things.
I know.
If you ask them right now, they say build is still going to happen. But,
Yeah, I know.
We all know that's.
But anyway, it's got to come to these other kinds of devices, right? It can't just be those. It can't.
Right. And I think both of us agree. It looks like it's going to make tons of sense on a traditional laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they'll
It'll
still
have to be a
that-
new laptop.
Don't they still have
Right.
that problem, though, of the expectations?
Well, no, because this time it will work, right? So imagine it ships on dual screen devices in the fall of 2020 or whatever, and backward compatibility with classic desktop apps is, 80% or 90%, right? That's still amazing for a thing that's not a computer to be able to run Microsoft Office or Photoshop. Not that you ever should do that, but whatever. But it will run, even if it runs slow. They have said that compatibility will improve over time. It will never be 100%, but no version of Windows is technically 100% backward compatible. But they get it to an acceptable level after some amount of time in the market. Those expectations will be met. I think that's the point. This container thing is brand new. You can't just ship a 1.0 container thing out to potentially millions of users because they will have those expectations. But you ship it out of this courier-looking thing, and if it runs any desktop applications, it's just a bonus.
Yeah.
And I think that, and
I'm
they
sure
have
they'll
said,
still,
they literally have said,
they'll
this
warn
will
people
improve.
still, don't you think? I think they'll still say,
Sure.
your mileage may vary. Our goal is to get all 132 apps to work, but right now that's not the case, even when we're shipping the final Rev 1 of it.
And that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing
as long
is,
as they're upfront.
if you
about
imagine, sorry, if you think about a traditional form factor PC like Mary Jo's Surface laptop or that Dell thing that you have or the HP we were talking about earlier, whatever, if that thing were to ship with Windows 10X and it doesn't work out for you, much like Windows 10S didn't work out for most people.
Linux on it.
You could just flip a switch and it probably goes right to 10X. 10, whatever.
10 regular. Do you think that? So that's interesting. Just as they did with 10S, you think they'll do that?
Yeah.
There'll be a switch.
They have to.
I want real Windows.
Just in case.
Yeah.
You have to have the escape hatch.
And you don't think it'll be hard to do?
Well, no. Okay, I'm going to
For
say a
them,
little asterisk,
technically?
but no, I don't think it will be hard to do. I think this is just Windows. This is just another form of Windows. I think these things are a lot closer together than a lot of people may believe.
Yeah, that's really the question, isn't it? Is how close is this?
The one issue we've raised is Intel has come up with this big core, small core new architecture, and will Windows 10X require that, right? Or will traditional versions of Windows 10 be ported or brought to this process? Will they just work? I mean, these are things I don't know much about, so I can't really. I don't know. They've never really said anything. My guess is that Windows 10X will just work on whatever Intel, and Windows 10 desktop will work on whatever Intel, including these new architecture Intel platforms. Yeah. But it's a little question.
I think it'll. Yeah, it is a question. But what I've heard from people is it'll work on new devices, like starting whenever Duo launches, anything launched after that, it'll work.
Yeah. Okay.
But not on things that already exist. Right?
Yep. And you mean Neo?
Neo, right. Yeah. Here we go again.
Joe, I can't believe after Leo screwed that up earlier.
So
that
Duo is Android, Neo is Windows.
Duo is Android.
There is a 50% chance every time the word Duo or Neo comes out of any of our mouths, it's wrong. We just have to live with this. There's nothing.
You know what? I
got
to make up a game for myself. Maybe that Duo begins with D and Android ends with D.
There you go.
Oh, I thought the game was every time we say it wrong, someone has to take a drink.
Okay.
Okay, we can have that game.
That's another good one. That's another excellent one.
I had a different kind of game in mind.
It's been 2 weeks, but there is a Windows 10 Insider build. How come it's been 2 weeks? Because we were gold. We're golden. Is that why?
No.
Oh, no. This is for the next version of Windows.
Never mind.
So the reason it's been 2 weeks is because I don't feel like those people have their act together. But
did it say bugs? Was it, or is that 2004 that was bugs?
They were about to ship a build. I don't know if it was a week or two ago. I guess it was a week ago. And they ran into a last second issue. And so they said, hey, we'll just come back. So the 2 week break is really because there was 1 week they just kind of missed.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But there's an incredible and major change that we all need to know about. Are you up on this, Mary Jo? Crazy this is. So one of the remaining controversies, one of the few remaining controversies, I'd say, in Windows 10 is this notion of telemetry data collection, right? There are people who feel that this is a major privacy problem, and Microsoft has performed what I call privacy theater multiple times. It's kind of a waving of the hands to pretend that they're doing something. You know, they care about our privacy. And look, we're going to give you a detailed list in an XML file of all the data we're collecting. It's easy to read. It's fun. You'll love it. And so they're doing a new kind of hand waving here, which I love. And I to be fair, I mean, the change they're making does make it a little more clearer, I should say.
It does.
But basically what they've done is renamed the two levels of data collection that they have. So they used to call them basic and full. Basic is they are what they sound like. Basic is the minimum that they require. So now they're calling them required diagnostic data and full diagnostic data. Oh, sorry. Optional diagnostic data. So this makes it more transparent. So that's 2020's privacy changes to Windows, everybody. Congratulations.
Aren't there somewhere? There also are some new group policy settings that are supposed to make IT admins have more control over what they send. But I didn't see the details on that.
No, no one did, and it's so
nothing to see here.
Here's what I believe it is. I believe that before there were two switches. You could basic or we'll use the new names, required or optional, right? Under the new optional diagnostic data policy, I believe it's just going to be more granular. So you can go in and say, if I want to opt into actually sending optional data to Microsoft, I can choose which types of optional data I can send. I think that's all it is.
Yeah.
But it's not clear.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a new icon too. So, you know what? I really underplayed.
A new icon?
How exciting this is.
Man. Bury the leader, won't you? Just holy cow.
No, and we should say we believe, though this has not been stated publicly, that 20H2, which is this build that Paul's talking about, is going to be just like 1909 was, meaning it's going to be really small. It's going to be delivered like a cumulative update. And so this is why there's not a lot of stuff to see.
And by the way, I think it's non-ironically applaud. I'm very, very happy to hear.
We hope that's the case. They still aren't confirming that, but everybody's kind of telling us wink, wink. Yeah, that's what it is.
Right. General availability. 2004.
I kind of thought that would be yesterday during Patch Tuesday, that they might have some words to say about seekers go forth and get your 20H1. But no.
No, they have some words.
They have words, but not those words.
They have the best words.
Yeah. No general availability yet. Any information yet on that for 2004, which is the next is the 20H1 update. Basically, it's done. It's finished. I think they haven't tested it in the release preview ring, maybe, or something. Like one more test in the release preview ring.
I don't think it's gone to release preview. I could be wrong about that. I thought it. I know it's in fast. I know Slow got a newer build of it, which is kind of interesting.
Right, they keep fixing it. Right, they keep putting out bug fixes and patches and cumulative updates, even though it isn't available.
Right. Well, that's fine. I mean,
that's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So no word yet.
It's all good. Everything's fine. I don't know why we say otherwise.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. So we're just kind of waiting to see that.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Campbell is in your dining room.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the quality of my internet today. So
Dr. Dickie Campbell will be joining us with the COVID-19 weekly update, a new feature on Windows Weekly.
That's right.
He's here to talk about other things. Why is he living with you now? Is this?
Well, it's complicated.
Is there a big conference in the lower Macungie Valley that we don't know about?
Exactly.
Sometimes you have a meeting of the Star Chamber, Leo. I don't know.
Plans.
I don't know.
Plans. We're going to take a break.
He was on the East Coast. He's just visiting.
The magic is about to happen behind the scenes. It will incorporate Richard's little window. Will squeeze Paul left and squeeze Mary Jo right, and we're going to jam little Dickie Campbell right in the middle.
Right.
And I don't know if that's going to leave any
Windows
room
Weekly sandwich
for Bradley, but we'll figure it out. A Windows Weekly sandwich coming up. But first, a word from our sponsor, my friends, CashFly. CashFly is, for a decade now, is the company that's bringing you Windows Weekly and every show that we do, when you download it from CacheFly. And that's a good thing. It means your download, I don't know if you've noticed, you probably haven't. That's a good thing. You don't notice, but it's coming in fast. It's reliable. If it's broken, it's us, not them. We do from time to time screw things up, but CacheFly never does. No 3 a.m. calls. CacheFly is really amazing. CacheFly saves us a lot of money, as much as 20% over other CDNs. It's faster. And now they have a new feature, which I think is so cool, they call it 100% cache shield. It means that your cache hit ratio, should I explain this? If you know what a CDN is, you know that the way it works, you have multiple servers all over the world. Customers, in our case, you go to, when you download it, you're automatically routed to the nearest server, so it's faster. And because you have so many servers, you have 100% SLA. There are many benefits to this. But there is that initial hit of getting the data to the server, and if the cache is out of date, then it goes all the way back up the chain, and you're going to have some bandwidth costs. With 100% cache hit ratio, that doesn't happen. A drastic reduction for you in data transfer fees with AWS's S3 and other cloud storage origins. Because instead of hitting S3 or wherever you're putting your stuff, they have 100% cache hits. They always get it from themselves. And this is just one more reason why we really are glad we're on CacheFly. You will be too. 100% Cache Shield is a next-generation content delivery solution. It is a dedicated storage space just for you, which means your data and content are closer to your customers without the traffic of other companies getting involved. That means it's more reliable. You could buy as much space as you want. Your data is fetched from the 100% Cache Shield rather than your origin. Shielding reduces origin spend, in some cases, by thousands a month because it guarantees no cache misses. It also remarkably improves download speeds, no buffering. That's what your customers want, whether you're a web app or podcast, content of any kind, music. You can easily and reliably scale video streaming. A lot of people use CacheFly for that too, to reach global audiences of any size. I remember when it was a big deal because we had 170,000 views on one of our special events. Now it's routinely in the millions, not for us, but we're still happy with 175,000. But for, TV, people are streaming it now. And that's how you do it. Hyperfast download speeds, low latency, a scalable solution for gaming. I can go on and on, but I want you to take a look at CacheFly for yourself. They've got a complimentary assessment. You bring your CDN bill and your usage trends. No pressure. They're not going to hard sell you, but they will tell you if you can save with CacheFly. In many cases, you're overpaying by 20% or more with that other guy. Go to CacheFly. That's what we did, and we are so happy. twit.cachefly.com. twit.cachefly.com. We thank him so much for supporting this show for so long. Now, I'm going to bring in little Dickie Campbell. Go to 7. It is time for the COVID-19 update. Richard Campbell has flown in from Canada, where medical care is apparently abundant and free.
And Vancouver, no less, where we had some of the earliest cases, too.
Oh, yeah, so you're just over the hill over the dotted line from Seattle.
Yeah. Well, I used to make that drive routinely, but not right now.
No. Okay, Paul, Mary Jo, I've run out of things to say.
Well, okay. It's been an eventful week. Around COVID-19 and Microsoft, right? I mean, two of their Seattle area employees were diagnosed with COVID-19. They're encouraging everyone who works in the Seattle area and the Bay Area to work at home, if at all possible, through May 25th. And people who cannot, they're like hourly employees, retail workers, they're paying their full wages if they are sent home, which is great. So it's MVP Summit's been canceled as an in-person event. WSL Conference, which was this week, was canceled as an in-person event. We're waiting to hear about Build because so far Microsoft has not said Build is going to be a virtual only.
Did you hear the latest on this, though?
Yeah, I did. So today, the governor of Washington
Jay
State,
Inslee, yes.
Jay Inslee declared any in-person gathering of over 250 people should not happen, should be restrained. At least I believe
that would do and build pretty quickly.
It would. And so I asked Microsoft today, okay, so your governor just said this. What's the word? And they said, we have no comment.
Yeah.
This is actually what's happened. This is what happened at South by, which is the city of Austin said, dudes, and I think conferences would like the city to take the burden, take the hit, right?
For sure they would.
Yeah. Absolutely. As somebody who operates a conference, like I've signed some pretty serious contracts, and the hotels and conference centers aren't going to let them out of those for the goodness of their heart. Right. It's kind of useful to have
we don't have
a governor
choice.
or a mayor to set a rule.
Yeah.
And this is happening across Europe as well. I've being involved in the conference business as long as I have been. I'm on the phone with a lot of conference organizers right now, and places like Switzerland and Denmark and so forth are all setting caps on how many people can gather in a given location, and so that's an end to an awful lot of conferences.
What's happening with your conference, Richard?
We are still underway. The interesting thing about Orlando is it's still busy. The hotel's sold out. I still have people registering because other conferences are canceling and they want to go to a show. Disney is busy, like hour-long plus waits for most of their rides. So the folks that are still registering with are being put into overflow hotels. But, we talk to them every day. You have to. And if the state of Florida goes the way of the state of Washington, the things are going to have to change.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you were supposed to be here tomorrow in New York doing an event, right?
For just a .NET meetup. I mean, there was good registration.
Like canceled,
for it.
right?
Yeah. They've basically closed that Microsoft facility for everything pretty much. So we just try and do it online, but it's not the same.
We just got word NAB in Las Vegas has been canceled now.
Mm-hmm. And E3?
Yeah, E3 was canceled.
E3, yep.
E3
but there's
is
a really
interesting
big
that's
show.
Far out.
Right. Yeah,
well,
that's a long...
NAB's April. NAB's in April, but they're still canceling it. I think that this is really the trend.
When you think about back to guys like Mobile World Congress and things, they were also looking at, hey, a big chunk of our sponsors are coming from China. The 2-week quarantines are a problem for that. So if you're planning a large show, which is a year's worth of work, you need commitments way in advance. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we start seeing shows that are actually not going to run to the fall canceling soon because they can't get commitments from sponsors and vendors and things.
Yeah, New York is weird right now. Like the subways are half empty. People are out and going places and doing things. Like restaurants are kind of somewhat empty, but not completely empty. So people are out and about, but nothing like a normal, weekday kind of thing.
I was staying with some friends in New York, and one day all of the buttons on the elevator were covered over in plastic so that they can sterilize them every hour easily without getting everything a mess. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting times. Build is weird because at this point, I feel like if they don't cancel, I think a lot of people will just not come.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And there's a non-trivial number of organizations just putting no travel options in, right? You can't travel.
They've got an FAQ page on the Build site right now that says, if your company bans travel, or if you're in a country that is being quarantined from the U.S., you will, of course, give you a full refund on Build.
Right. Yeah. And airlines are being pretty easy about change fees and things right now, too. So I think for the most part, we're rallying to do the right thing. I would be very surprised if it went ahead, especially the path we're on now. But that's fine.
Look, I work from home. This is the only time I get to see people, right? So Richard, thank God, came to Pennsylvania. But usually, me going to Seattle, me going to Vegas, me going to New Orleans, which hopefully happens later this year, DC. I could have gone to Barcelona. I mean, at some point, this whole year is being taken away.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is I get a lot more time.
That's not a huge problem compared to getting sick or dying, obviously, but.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get ill, and it's weird to be at home too, because the wife's kind of used to every few weeks she looks at me like, "Don't you have somewhere to go?"
Yeah, I love you, but why are you here?
Why are you still here, right? How can I miss you if you won't go away?
So I have a kind of a reverse problem. My wife and I have both worked from home for many years, and when the kids were little, I used to get to leave and have that wonderful experience where I lay diagonally in a bed and it's just all mine and, whatever. But as we got older, the kids got older, they're out of the house or they're, in high school or whatever. She wants to travel now, which is completely understandable. So she's the one complaining, like, when are you, what's going on with your work trips? She likes to tag along. And, yeah, it's in many ways, I guess it's worse for her.
Yeah, it's very different. But I'm getting more typing hours in. I am writing more. So I'm trying to get this darn book finished. Who knew it was going to be this much of an epic? But
I could have helped you understand how hard it is to do this.
I think I'm amongst my friends here in terms of how hard it is to write a book.
Yes, you are.
But at least it's unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Right.
Deeply frustrating, and you never have any confidence that you actually done it correctly, and all of that.
No. Hey, are you talking publicly about your book or no?
About history? Yeah, I've talked on the show about history of .NET a lot, and I've done a bunch of talks on it too. Yeah, which is really my way of testing material. Mm-hmm. So as I learn new things, I write different versions of the talk, and I try it on audiences just to see how people respond to it. It's an interesting dynamic, I figure any old .NET person is going to be interested in reading, but the younger Microsoft employees who they have no sense of that history and they're really interested. So it's always been a fun.
I think they're going to be freaked out by the way this thing went down the first time.
Oh yeah. Well,
Paul and I compare notes sometimes, just like, do you remember when they said this, or like when this happened? And it's like, am I misremembering it? Because it's so insane how it happened at the beginning.
Well, there was no intent to make this product. It kind of emerged from a set of problems, and then one day they gave it a name. We were talking earlier about this. It's just the announcement of .NET in 2000 was literally in the midst of Steve Ballmer negotiating the consent decree to keep Microsoft together as a company.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so that was part of that announcement was it was this open internet standards thing, and they were publishing various parts of .NET as ECMA specifications, which Miguel Diaz would grab on to.
That seemed a little less than open to me at the time, as I recall. And it was only little parts of it. You have a better understanding of this than I do, but the language specification of the...
Yeah, there was the common language specification. There was a version of C# published. Later, there was a version of the intermediary language published as well. But when Miguel started working on Mono, which within months of them releasing those specifications, he was starting to tinker with Mono, or what would become Mono. Then he quickly found out they were missing important things, and the conversations continued. A lot of people got involved, and Microsoft actually released more information, file format information, and things that allowed them to actually make Mono work. As weird as that was in those early days. Because you didn't really know, poor Miguel Diaz, I've interviewed him for several hours about the book. And there was this point where all the Linux people are angry with him because he's working with Microsoft. Yeah. And all the Microsoft people are a little skeptical of him because, Linux is a cancer, according to the boss.
Yeah.
So, it was hard to be Miguel. I'm always been impressed by him, what he did there.
But his actions spoke to the benefit of being open, and the Microsoft of today would have embraced this out of the gate. I mean, it would have been a completely different thing. In fact, that's how .NET eventually did evolve. You have to kind of wonder if Miguel might not have come on board a decade earlier or whatever if Microsoft had actually just opened the thing up.
Well, he actually applied for a job in the 90s. To work on a Unix version of Internet Explorer, which ended up not being a product, and he didn't come on board. But there's always been an interesting relationship there. Certainly on the show in those dark times, in like the 2011, 2012 timeframe, when Microsoft was very much focused on JavaScript. On .NET Rocks, we were talking about, hey, is the caretaker of C# now Miguel Diaz? Because he was making C# for iOS and Android. Like he was doing some really innovative things at a time where there was just not a lot of action from Microsoft.
I remember him I don't know if it was on Twitter or where it was, but he put out something saying, Microsoft, we love C# more than you do, I think he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a challenge, right? It was like, we're doing the right thing. Why aren't you doing the right thing?
I've told this story before, but years ago at one of our meetups in San Francisco, so this would have been for a build or whatever that was there at the time, I was standing there with Raphael, and this guy kind of came up and he said, hey, I'm big fans of yours or whatever. And we kind of shook hands and everything. And I said, oh, what do you do? And he said, I bring .NET to Linux or to open source or something. And I said, yeah. And I said, wait, you're Miguel. he just sort of, nonchalantly and with great humility. I mean, it's just a really funny, he's just a nice guy.
He's the nicest guy. And he was very excited when I said I was going to work on the book. And he had stacks of notes for me. We talked for an entire day. There's so many stories to tell, right? Just sort of gather all that. And part of the challenge of putting this thing together, what's taking so much time is, I'm asking people to remember meetings from 20 years ago. And everyone has their own version of that meeting. So sometimes I'm taking, here's 3 different interpretations of that meeting. What do I want to write? How do I describe this? So, and in the end, it's none of their versions. It's a composite of some kind.
Yep.
Which is going to give them all plausible deniability too, right?
That's true. Has everybody cooperated?
When can we expect this?
That's a great question, Paul. I'm really looking forward to having it done. And I couldn't tell you when that's going to be. For the most part, everyone's been pretty cooperative. I really get the sense that people want this to exist. Yeah. So, but I would say that the most comfortable, who just like, yes, absolutely, is directly proportional to how senior they are. So, Mr. Guthrie did not, is all in, right? When I was starting the process, I thought, who do I have to have? Like, if I don't have these people, I'm not credible. And it was Scott Guthrie, Brian Harry, who originally led the CLR, Anders Halsberg for C#, even Jason Zander, who was very fundamental at the very beginning. And so I fortunately, my good luck for me doing .NET Rocks, like I have their emails. They will talk to me, and I contacted them all and said, I'm thinking of doing this, and they all said yes.
Nice.
That's great.
As you go further down into folks that are not as senior, you get a little more circumspect. And it's been very interesting to talk to folks that have subsequently left the company. One of them being Soma Segar, who was the head of developer division. And he was very generous with his time. I've spent many, many hours with Soma. But he has a different view now being elsewhere. He's working for Madrona.
How about Don Box? Did he talk to you?
I have not talked to Don yet. He was very much involved in those very early days. But he's mostly been on dark projects now.
I know.
So it's interesting that the things he can talk about, things he can't. I had a great conversation with Chris Sells. Speaking of the Developmentor core. I also went down and spent time with Brad Abrams, who's now. Oh wow, Google.
Really?
Don Box was external to Microsoft, but he must have come on board during the .NET timeframe, probably. Yeah, and I don't remember Chris Sells maybe was as well. That one I'm not sure.
They were both Developmentor folks. And Don helped work on the SOAP specification back in time.
Does Charlie Kindle enter into this conversation at all? I know he wrote a lot of the early documentation back before it was even .NET, the kind of successor to Com Plus and all that stuff.
And I've talked to, I haven't got an extensive interview with Charlie. I've talked to him before. He's been on the show and things like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, I'm mostly talking to the engineers. Right. And again, getting them to recall things that they struggle to recall often. One of the things I've come to appreciate talking to these developers is they build an awful lot of code that never sees the light of day. So lots of experiments, and they don't know which one is going to see the light of day. So they don't know what notes to keep or what to focus on.
Yeah, they might not even remember which one did see the light of day.
Well, and I often have to remind them of timelines.
Yeah,
and all
Why
all
did
the
we
order
do
of
this?
things.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny, but I'm still enjoying myself. So clearly, I haven't worked hard enough on it
yet. In my
it's
own
a labor of love.
I as I've been beating this one to death on the show, but I've been working on these applications, going back and using these older .NET frameworks and so forth, and it's just fascinating to me, some of the avenues that seemed like they were a big deal at the time, and then they never kind of happened. It really went anywhere. Like Microsoft worked on these navigational apps that were like basically like a web thing hosted in an application container, and you could run the app in a web browser on a web page, or you could run it as an app. And I don't know if this ever even happened or whatever, but it seems like there were a lot of interesting, not dead ends, but little side roads that were like, or like, Silverlight was a little bit like this. Seemed like it was the big thing. Then it was like beep, 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 beep.
Yeah,
we're going to have to go off in this other direction.
Yeah, well, Jobs kind of did them in on that one, right? That's the Thoughts on Flash famous open letter.
Yeah, which is really thoughts on browser plugins,
Yes. Well, he was worried about the fact that Flash murdered the battery of the iPad. And it did. Like, you could visibly watch the battery drain while an animation was playing. And all he did was ban it from Safari. There were other browsers you could use to run Flash if you had to, but the writing was on the wall at that point. I think people are angry about Silverlight because Microsoft didn't handle it particularly well.
Don't bring that up.
Yeah, not that you'd know anything about this, Mary Jo, but
no. Somebody just asked me. You know who asked me about this? Eve, your friend Eve.
Oh, really?
Kogan. She said, "My dad told me a story about how you helped kill Silverlight," and I'm like, "Oh boy."
That is not true.
That's what I said. I'm like, so I'm like, okay, so she didn't phrase it exactly that way. She said, "I heard you were involved in that whole thing, and it was a very interesting incident." And so I told her the whole story, Bob Muglia, and our strategy has shifted. I'm like, she's probably bored out of her mind, but I was like, this is the life of a tech journalist.
Soma's it connected me with Bob, and I was intending to get an interview with him because I really wanted to talk to him about his view on that moment. Because the Thoughts on Flash letter is from April. And the team members of Silverlight that I talked to from that time, they knew at that moment they were doomed. Yeah. Right? That it was over. And in fact, the team started being dismantled from that point on. There were a need for XAML folks in the phone product. There was a need for XAML folks in Windows. So they were being pulled in different directions. So I don't know that Bob realized when he made that statement that it was the first words that Microsoft had said about the state of Silverlight. I don't think he knew.
No, and he told me that. Because I asked him, I just said, "So what's going on with Silverlight?" I was just sitting there like having an interview with them, and he's like, "So Mary Jo, our strategy with Silverlight has shifted." And I'm like taking notes, and as I'm writing them down, I'm like, "Uh-oh, this is huge. Like, this is a giant story."
I've walked into a giant story, not I caught the giant story.
No, I didn't say anything. No, and then he backed, when everyone got mad at me for writing that story, he came to my aid, and he actually put out a post. Do we have any other examples
of this happening? I mean, you're like the pioneer here. This has been our theme for the past 2 years.
I know. It's like I guess they're like, here, give it to Mary Jo. She doesn't care. She can give the bad news, and everyone can get mad at her.
Mary Jo is on a one-woman crusade to kill Silverlight.
Well, we were all at PDC, right? And it was the last PDC. Yeah. And it was a small one. It was on campus, and the weather was terrible, and there were no Silverlight sessions. That's what we noticed. Right. Yeah. Here was the Professional Developers Conference in April during the 2010 studio launch. They had talked a lot about it, and now they weren't talking about it. Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
this is a classic Microsoft communication problem. This has happened a lot. Mm-hmm. They have a tough time just standing up and saying, "Guys, things change.
It's dead."
Speak that clearly. I mean, it's dead.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like it burst into flames either. They pushed out the one last version, which took them almost a year because it went over to a maintenance team. And it's, by the way, still being patched for viruses and bug fixes and security breaches until next year, until 2021. Right. But it'll only run in IE if you can make IE run, which makes it pretty hard. We get emails on .NET Rocks from folks still supporting Silverlight apps. Like, that's the truth.
Oh boy,
they're out there.
I'd rather support a VB6 app than support Silverlight at this point.
Yeah, we get email from those people too.
I'm sure you have.
But and then their big they're all excited about Blazor. Like, is Blazor the new Silverlight? I just don't know that you want to make that correlation.
Probably not.
With the pain that people have over Silverlight.
Now, did you guys see this? I just saw this week. There's a company in France, Userware, and they have announced an open source implementation of Silverlight.
Yes, I did see that. Or they're hoping to. We put it on. It'll be on one of the shows coming up. The announcement anyway. Obviously, we're going to have to take the bits out for a spin and see if it is something. I mean, it fundamentally client-side Blazor using WebAssembly. If you mix in XAML as well and some of the architectural pieces, you can make something that vaguely resembles Silverlight. It just doesn't have a plugin anymore.
Doesn't sound anything like a Frankenstein's monster.
What could go wrong, right? So you're going to, and with WebAssembly, as it is, they're trying to make the client side work, hauling down a version of the .NET framework, and now you're going to add a XAML parser to that too. Yeah. How big's that page going to be?
It's called Open Silver, if anybody's looking for it or wants to play around with it.
It's a great name. I mean, good for them. Give it a shot.
Good for them. We all need something to occupy our time. They found something.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing the WebAssembly model, this idea that we just have access to programming languages into the browsers, opens the door to, so what language did you want to program in? And how did you want to go about it? And that's really interesting. Right. When I wear my run-ass hat, the IT hat, we like the security context of a browser already being in place. We prefer not to install stuff on desktops if we can avoid it. And so if you can do more programming straight in this browser security context, so much the better.
Mm-hmm.
I believe what you just said is PWAs are the future. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you, everybody.
Well, another part of my life is working on humanitarian toolbox projects.
All right.
And so we're in the midst of a conversation right now with a group of disaster response folks focused on earthquake notification and tsunami notification. And obviously you want that on a mobile device. And they have learned enough to know they don't want to build mobile apps. And so, of course, PWAs are at the front of that conversation. Mm-hmm. Like it's the way to go. It's running in the browser security context on the phone.
Do you think there's room in this world for the C# Blazor part of that story? Do you think that's part of it? Do you think this is going to have a major?
I think for certain groups of developers, making long-term maintainable JavaScript applications is not easy. And that's why we have tools like TypeScript and the like to try and put harnesses around keeping the code that's written in JavaScript healthy. Other languages, and I'm not just going to say C# because there's implementations of Go and other languages in WebAssembly as well. There are other languages that lend themselves to maintainability better. And so, it depends on what you want from an application. If you're living in the enterprise architecture world where it's like, I want 10 years out of this app, maintainability is at the top of your list. And JavaScript really struggles to be up there. Ask the Angular guys. Some of the best devs out there, they depend on TypeScript heavily, and it's still a battle.
I don't know, being ugly or unsophisticated or whatever hasn't stopped JavaScript, just like it didn't stop Objective-C because of iOS or whatever.
Software still gets successful, but people look for alternatives. This all ongoing array of languages happens for a reason. We don't make languages because it's fun. We make languages because we're frustrated.
Actually, I think we do, but that's another story. Well, there are a lot of hobby languages. But there are ways to do JavaScript safely, not just TypeScript. There are lots of ways to do it. I like ClojureScript, and you can make PWAs that way.
You can.
Very reliably.
It takes some discipline to build them well.
Yeah.
But it can be done. But, for certain groups of developers, they like their other languages, and they know how to build software that way. That's what they're leaning on.
Right.
Is your book going to go all the way up to what's happening with .NET 5, or are you just cutting off?
At some point I have to cut it off, mostly because I'll be close to finished and you got to stop writing. But I am certainly got my eyes focused on this reunification of .NET. .NET has fragmented heavily, and we've been paying the price for that over the years. And so there's certainly energy inside of Microsoft now to unify it. And a lot of what's happening in .NET 5 is about that. So it makes no sense, I think, not to tell that story. It'll be
like it's the
far
logical
from finished.
conclusion.
You know, I already hear rumors of things that are going to be pushed to .NET 6 because they're too ambitious for .NET 5.
Yeah.
Oh, .NET Core becoming .NET. I mean, it seems like that's a good end game as far as the story.
Well, just from maintainability perspective, right? Like bit by bit, the underlying parts of .NET, the real fundamentals, are common between the two. Why are they writing them twice? And heaven help you if they're ever different. So having one code base for that, and then this model of adding SDKs on top for Windows-specific capabilities, which they did in Core 3.1, make a lot of sense. And now with the move with WinUI 3, which is, you know, the UWP folks saying, hey, let's move the UI parts out of the Windows builds and into a separate SDK. That reflects the same model. So more and more.
Just doing side by side is the thing. Like, you know, no normal human being would ever even know what .NET is, but they might have seen the fact that for some reason, this .NET framework thing gets updated in Windows Update all the time. And that process takes forever. If you ever have a bunch of updates to install, the one that will take the longest is always the .NET one. They may have run into it from that perspective.
Well, and heaven help you if you've had to run a UW. Here's this Windows app, but it only run in Windows 10 9809. And you never knew what an 1809 was. Right?
There are different versions of Windows 10. I thought Windows 10 was a version.
Yeah, exactly. And then then you get to explain to people what that means.
I know.
You can always tell, and you can recognize the IT guy who understands it because he's already torn all his hair out.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what's happening now, basically. Like they're allowing a lot of what used to be tied to a specific version of Windows 10 in this case to be deployable by an application separately from the operating system. So they're separating that. And then with .NET Core, or I guess we'll call it .NET 5, you can, as part of your application, say, I'm using this version. It doesn't matter what other applications are using or what other versions you may have on the PC.
But you think about the amount of time that's being wasted inside of Microsoft trying to synchronize all these versions with .NET Standard as they continue to advance. If they can actually unify the code base where it is the same, they're going to be able to go faster. There are more features that can be built. Like there's some big advantages for all of us if they can get this done.
Yep.
What's going to be your cover image on the book?
You know, I've got about 60 titles. Every time somebody comes up with a title idea, I just write it down. Like I'm not trying to analyze it all. My current favorite title is Coming About, like with the nautical term, coming about. How .NET and open source turned the Microsoft ship.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, so that's good.
It could be a ship on the cover.
Or you could just go, Doc!
Like ship it.
Or how the .NET tail wagged the Microsoft dog.
Ooh, 61.
I've got a version of that. Yeah, that very idea, right? Because the profound thing about what happened with .NET Core is here they retooled a product originally built for enterprise developers working in Windows into a cross-platform cloud product, and that's it was pretty cool for all of us on the outside, but on the inside, it was very profound. It said to Microsoft employees that were looking at, hey, now we're a cloud company. Everything I've done is not important anymore. No, you can retool and you can reinvent yourself to be cross-platform, open source, and cloud-centric. And they're doing it. You're seeing it happen.
Nice. I want to read the footnotes. That's what I want to read.
I think you should let us proofread the book.
Come on, you guys. The first thing you do is go to the index and look for your own names. I know that.
All I'm going to see is Mary Jo Foley killed Silverlight, page 25.
That's one of my titles. That's one of my chapter headings.
Maybe I'm not saying dedication is required. But it seems like
to the two people who made such a difference in my life.
Yes.
Without whom I would be nothing.
To the outside observers who did absolutely nothing for .NET, but deserve this special mention.
Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Thank you, guys.
to Paul, who
No, I
will
think
drink anything I
Paul
put in
should
front
be
of him,
forced
and
to
to Mary
read
Jo, who knows better.
I'm just going to say, just a tip from a multi-book author to the two people who made such a difference in my life, and they know who they are. It's
That's good.
Excellent dedication.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you could have Paul read the book for Audible, right?
Oh, boy, that'd be good. You could hear his teeth grinding.
It'll be like a murder mystery.
Who done it?
Well,
Heavily?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to do my own audio book, but I was also thinking I would do a director's cut as well, where I'll add in all the other stories.
That's a great idea.
By the way, absolutely do that, because one of my favorite audiobooks, it's from a comedian, but he reads the book, but as he's reading it, it reminds him of things. And he says, when I wrote this, and he goes off on these side stories, and it actually makes it all the more entertaining.
Yeah. Well, and that's absolutely been my experience, right? I mean, all these interviews, I've kept careful notes on the many things that happen with it, but some of them are absolutely absurd, right? Like just the most ridiculous things. And they're a fun part of the story, but they're not. I won't be in the book, but they'll be in the director's version of the audiobook.
Yeah, I love the idea of a director's cut. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I just got to finish the damn thing.
Yes. Yeah, what are you doing on this podcast?
Quarantined, if you're quarantined,
you're quarantined in Emmaus. Start writing.
Did you bring your typewriter? Because you can work there.
I do love the fact that William Gibson, who's also from Vancouver, is the guy who coined the term cyberspace, but he did it on a on a Wedgwood typewriter.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? And Neil Stevenson uses longhand fountain pens on paper.
Right. Nothing crazy about that guy.
The guy who invented the metaverse.
Yep.
It's gonna be written on a Surface 2. So far, it's been written on a Surface Book 2, and it's gonna keep being written
on a Surface Book 2.
It can't be done on ARM. It's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Nice.
I spotted.
Well, I hope you get back home. Are they going to let you back in Canada?
They don't really have a choice. But
they're like, wait, you in rural Pennsylvania? No.
No.
Door B is for you.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic I'll get home just fine.
Good.
Good.
I'm sad your event didn't happen here, though. I was going to go Thursday.
Yeah. And I've been working, the advantage of talking to all these smart people all the time is you can really craft a sort of story around what the next decade of software development should look like. Some of the new technologies are coming into play. And, this is the decade that
but you got to
Moore's
figure
law
out what the next 6 months of business travel look like first.
Yeah.
And it does not look good.
No, it's getting a pretty good picture of a whole lot of not traveling.
Yep.
Well, and related to our friend Eve, she's going home on Friday. The program she's in is shutting down. Yeah. She's quite upset. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm waiting. My son is going to find out any time now whether he can go back to school after spring break. Like they may actually just close the school.
A lot of schools. Stanford's closed. Yale closed. Everybody was sent home. Stanford closed, but left everybody in the dorms.
Yeah.
And kept the dining hall open.
Like it's like a giant cruise ship that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we let Richard go? I have to press magic buttons if we're going to remove him from. We're going to excise him from the screen.
Sure. Exercise.
Yeah. Well, it's actually cut him out. Yeah.
We got to go back.
You have to dab the screen with a little whiskey, Leo. A little dab of whiskey, and I'll be gone.
I've got some button over here. Over here. Probably do.
Well, I hope we get to see you, Richard, in person somewhere.
Hope so. One of these, some event's going to happen. Goodness knows.
Yeah.
Maybe not till the fall.
Yeah.
Right. All right, guys.
Thank you, Richard Campbell.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Leo.
.NET Rocks and Run As Radio, two of the best Windows podcasts. You're waiting for me to say something, aren't you?
I think you said enough.
Nope, go ahead.
Two of the best Windows podcasts. Now,
the second and third best.
Second and third best. if I press this button and I say,
"Oh boy,
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice," he disappears.
Oh my God, it worked.
He did it.
It's amazing. Thank you,
incredible.
Richard. Goodbye. Goodbye, Richard.
Well,
I'm a miracle man. Oh, wait a minute. His lower third. That's the last to go. It's like the Cheshire Cat. The last thing left is
always leave something behind.
Yeah. So, shall we move on? That was our COVID-19 weekly segment.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to hear about his book, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I didn't know anything about where the book was at, so that was good to hear.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm dying to read this. I actually I'd written that series on the history of Windows programming, and I actually stopped at .NET because I was thinking his book's going to come out any time, and I
that's so
should never attempt to cover this until he's done it.
So kind of you.
But
you were waiting so you could steal it. I get it.
Yes. Well, steal
such a
borrow some
ideas. Borrow some ideas.
Use it as a reference point.
So this is a weird story, and Mary Jo, you can give us the deets. But as part of Patch Tuesday, details about a new wormable SMB flaw that was not patched by Patch Tuesday have leaked out.
Yeah. This was so weird. So yesterday was Patch Tuesday. We have a dedicated security reporter at ZDNet, Catalan Simpanu, I believe is how he pronounces his last name. And so he usually covers Patch Tuesday and does like a roundup. Here's the 100 things they patched on Patch Tuesday. So I see him put a note on our list internally, and he said, so there's been a disclosure of something that didn't get patched, which is bizarre. And it turns out Cisco and Fortinet both did blog posts talking about this SMB3 vulnerability that's wormable.
They thought it would have been patched.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you see any stories about CVE 2020-0796, that's what this thing is. And Microsoft's not giving any details on when they might patch it. They're just saying no comment on that. And there's no comment on how this happened, how the vulnerability information got out before Microsoft was ready. I think what Microsoft is telling people is to turn off SMB3, I believe.
What?
In my very simplified. They're telling them to
say?
They're telling them to do something. I'm trying to find what he said.
Is SMB3 the latest version of SMB?
Yeah, I think it is.
So turning it off would be kind of
Microsoft is
networking.
They're providing instructions how to safely and correctly disable SMB3 compression.
Oh, it's the compression.
Compression.
Okay. The compression. Sorry, not SMB3 entirely. Yeah, and so there's information on Microsoft's website about that now. But this whole thing is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
I know. It's not a good look, let's just say. No.
Not a good look.
Not a good look. Yet another Patch Tuesday snafu.
Now, Microsoft did do a good thing. I read about this morning, and I see Catalan also has the story on this on NetCurs, which is several million unit botnet.
Yeah. I had never heard of these guys, but Catalan says this botnet has infected more than 9 million computers worldwide to date.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a botnet. Wow.
It is. Yeah. So Microsoft and some of its industry partners rallied together and they broke the algorithm, the DGA.
Because it generates automatic URLs. So So you can't say, I know what the URL is for the botnet. There's millions of them.
Yeah. And it took them quite a while, but they broke it together. Coordinated effort, 35 countries, multiple partners. It's considered one of the largest spam botnets ever created. It's been crippling people since 2012.
So it wasn't malware, it was used to redirect spam.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
And so Microsoft, his story says 58-day investigation on one particular NetCurs. Is that how you say it?
NetCurs. Yeah,
NetCurs infected computer. So yeah, it was a big deal. And Microsoft's been doing this a lot. You know, they've been increasingly partnering with other companies to break up malware issues, botnets.
They work with law enforcement too. Let's not
imply
that they're just kind of unilaterally doing this.
No,
but they've got the technical chops to do it, and the networking chops to do it. So that's really cool.
Right. Right. And it gives them more credibility when people say, oh, yeah, Microsoft security. It's like, well, look what they just did.
No,
right?
they care. So yeah.
They care. They care a lot.
They care. We care, man. We really care. Good. Nice job, Microsoft. Yeah. Good.
I know.
Good.
Yep.
They deserve some credit.
You got to give them kudos. Yeah. Even when you ding them with your left, you've got to give them kudos with your right.
And this, as you said, this is not the first time they've done this, so that's really good.
It is not.
Is there a dedicated team? Must be to doing this.
Oh man, Microsoft's cybersecurity group is gigantic.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so they've got a lot of feet on the street.
You also have a story.
I like Paul added this. This is hilarious. In the notes, it says Mary Jo has a team story.
Well, I was like, for some reason, this isn't in the notes. And as you were talking, I was thinking we should probably get that in the notes.
Is it anecdotal? What is it?
No. Well, so two things. Microsoft,
it's a poem.
They've been really pushing Teams with everybody working from home, right? Like
it's a big opportunity for them.
Yeah, WebEx and
everybody.
Zoom.
Google's doing it. Everybody, yeah.
Yeah, but one of the features that has not been part of Teams that I know Brad Sams in particular has been asking a lot about, but he's not the only one, is the ability to federate Skype consumer with Teams. Oh. I thought this must be there, right? Like, so if you're on Skype, the Skype consumer service, that you could just chat and email and chat and call somebody who's in Teams, but no, you cannot right now. Microsoft's been working on this for months, and it's been one of the most requested features for them in terms of moving everybody off Skype for Business.
One of the reasons that Brad harps on this, other than the desire to have the feature, which is, of course, important, is that Microsoft at some point said, well, we finally did everything that Skype for Business does, so now we can start the transition. This is one thing that Skype for Business did that Skype still doesn't do.
Yeah. I know.
So that thing is not actually feature complete compared to Skype for Business until this happens.
True. Correct. So here's a couple weird things about this, though. So it's going to start rolling out to people on Office 365, Microsoft 365 at the end of this month. It's going to be the rollout, they say, is going to be complete by April, but the feature is disabled by default. So if your company wants to use this, your admin has to go in and change it in the settings. I'm curious why this is disabled by default. Doesn't this kind of seem like it would be something you would just leave on because perhaps many of your contacts would want to do this, or maybe there's a security compliance reason?
Yeah, I mean, Teams has controls, right, so that can protect data from the company leaving.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Non-employees. Yeah. That exists, but I think I don't see why they don't do this. This is a key component to a chat collaboration app. It just is. Like, you need to have the ability to talk to other people, and not all of them are going to be on Teams. And you can't go to someone and say, I need you to install Teams so you can, talk to our team here at work or whatever. You have to talk to people where they're at.
And they already enabled guest accounts, right? Like you can invite a guest
to communicate. But
right?
I know, but if you've got, look, everyone in your organization will be on Teams, but you'll have outside contractors or other people you're working with. You need to give them some, the requirement can't be, okay, open it, get a free version of Teams, figure out how to sign into it, tell us what the sign-in is, I mean, you just kind of meet them where they are. So anyway, this makes sense. I'm glad they're doing it. I don't understand why it took so long, but...
I remember now why Brad wanted this feature. He said when you guys were using Teams at BWW, his wife couldn't talk to him through Skype, and she was very angry.
Yeah, we all.
That's a good reason.
A good reason. Well, we don't want to have to manage multiple chat apps. This is it's a problem on mobile. It's a problem. It's a problem on the desktop. So
it is.
We, by the way, stopped using Teams, and not just for that reason. But once this kind of comes in, I mean, we'll look at it again.
Yeah.
Plus,
for sure.
If Mama ain't happy, ain't no one happy.
That's right.
Yeah.
GDC has been put off, but Microsoft's still going to do an Xbox event next Wednesday.
It's a virtual event. So this is...
That's what I'm saying, yeah. They're still doing an event, but it'll be online.
Right, what they would have announced at the show. Google's doing something similar. Google has always hosted or has long hosted I don't remember what they call it.
Is their event
kind of Google
going to be
GDC type
publicly available, the Microsoft event?
I believe that it is.
So that's good. Not everybody can get to GDC. Yeah. That's actually in fact, we were thinking it's right in the middle of Windows Weekly. It's 11:40 next week. We were thinking maybe, so I'll give you guys this option. We want to cover the stream. I think it'd be kind of, it's not going to be, all of GDC is still going on as a virtual event, but not as a real event. It's only virtual. I'm being corrected. Yes, no meat space for this. So what if, I'll give you guys a couple of choices. We could do a whole Windows Weekly earlier, and then, but we would like to stream the event. It's probably no more than an hour, right? Do we know how long it'll be? 10:40 is a weird time. Kind of implies it'll be 20 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah. So when is this? What's the date?
A week from today.
A week from today.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And I think everybody's interested. This will be their reveal of X, right? Xbox X.
Yeah. It would have been nice if it was a public reveal.
But it will be if they're streaming it, right?
Something that people could go up and take pictures of.
Oh.
Yeah.
So here's your choice. And I know Mary Jo's vote.
No, you know what? I'm actually in favor because right now, because of COVID-19, there's no news.
Okay. Right? So what if we did like the first 40 minutes of Windows Weekly?
Yeah.
And you guys stick around.
This is going to be the best Windows Weekly ever.
And we do.
I can't even believe I'm on board for this, but I am.
God.
We're going to top load this thing with Xbox, and then we're going to bring it home with more.
You know what, guys? I can just have a beer by my side to drown my sorrows.
Prepare yourself with whatever beverage you need.
Oh, boy.
Exactly.
But I'm sure we'll get a lot of Azure in there.
Yeah.
Your new apartment,
I'll make sure you
Mary
do.
Jo, is large enough to handle an Xbox. That's all I'm saying.
So let's make this plan then. We won't change Windows Weekly time, but we will, in the middle of Windows Weekly, break to the Microsoft event. And you know what? If it gets boring, I'll leave it to you guys. But if Paul, you say, well, okay, I've seen enough. Let's go on. We'll go on.
You know what? I'll bring the gong.
Say that at an Xbox event.
I will bring the gong.
But,
if I gong 3 times in a row, I may just take a nap.
Okay. So
just say Phil Spencer's name 3 times in a row, and we'll know to end it.
So we'll keep it going. We'll have the setup. I might have to move out to the big studio like Micah does when he does a show, so that we can put the thing up on a screen or something. We'll figure that out, and we'll just do Windows Weekly as normal. But in the middle of it, we will have Microsoft's reveal. I think it's exciting that the Xbox One X.
Right.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
cool.
You told this team story, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was it. There was no more of that.
That was it. Okay. There was no more to it than that.
Meanwhile, is this price official $399 in the Xbox One X, Paul? That seems low.
It is. It's not. What's unclear is if it's temporary, right?
Like
so
when you first get it now and.
Like this might be a sale, but and by the way, there's a lot I don't understand about this price, because this is how Microsoft describes that price, not as its lowest price ever, but as its best value price ever.
Well, it isn't its lowest. You could get an Xbox for $299. Right?
Well, the Xbox One X. I mean,
it's never had any price.
Sorry. This is not the next one.
This is not the new one.
This is the Xbox One X.
Oh,
this is the current one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is the current 4K console. So, currently with the release of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is a sequel to.
Well, there you go.
Ori and the blah blah blah. What's it called? Ori and the Blind Forest, which is an awesome game.
Really, this is a major title.
Yeah, no, this is. I have not played this one yet, but these games. This is the second game, but the original it's gorgeous, and this one runs 4K 60 frames a second HDR on Xbox One X, which is why you might want to consider it. Gorgeous looking game. But the bigger news in some ways is the console pricing, because I don't actually know if this matches the lowest price ever. I feel like it might have been available at this price, maybe over Black Friday or something. I don't know. I just find it odd that they described it as the best value price ever. What does that even mean?
Do you get with this? Do you get a terabyte of storage? What do you get?
Yeah, you get a terabyte, which honestly for these new 4K games is not enough.
I know. But you could probably put
and
an
I'll talk
external
about
drive on it. So this is 4K. Is it HDR? It looks kind of like it'd be good for HDR.
Yeah, it's HDR.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm surprised. Do you shoot anything here? Is there a sniper rifle?
There is. You do
rocket?
fight. Yeah.
Oh, you do fight.
Yep.
Because it really looks like just like a kid's cartoon.
Yeah. No, but it's the original game was so good that they sold the soundtrack. Like it was, and they released a definitive edition on Xbox a few years after the fact probably for the Xbox One X or whatever, where they improved the visuals further. Probably made it available in 4K or whatever. But it's been a while. So this is like the second. This is kind of like a Pixar type release, but as a game. Really interesting.
So it's kind of it's a game as movie almost.
It's an adventure action game. Yeah.
Actually, it looks fun. It looks it's sort of a Rayman style platformer. Kind of this, but
that's true.
Yeah, it looks pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
If you have an Xbox Game Pass of any kind, you can get it on PC or console. You can get it from Steam if you want. Microsoft is now so open. They do that, and if you just want to buy it, it's $30.
It's okay. It's no Cuphead, right, Mary Jo? But
it's the next best
you would
thing.
Find it to be. It's probably no. It is absolutely easier than Cuphead.
Oh, nothing's harder than Cuphead. That's
right.
The
you guys said that's
ever.
Really hard, right?
Oh my God!
And this one actually comes with an easy mode. So Cuphead needed a setting for normal people, but.
Cuphead was crazy hard.
Wasn't in their plans.
But then I looked at somebody like Michael, our son, who's 17, who played it all the way through in the hardest mode, and then did it all over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Some people, kids have some strange reflexes.
Yeah, it's so irritating.
It's so irritating. So irritating. It's time for the back of the book. We'll start off with Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
Yeah, this kind of came up in our earlier discussion, but so people know, when the original Windows 10X emulator came out in February, I had a tip about getting it because the tip there was you didn't need to install Visual Studio. You didn't have to be a developer. Anyone could get it, but you had to be on the latest Insider build, which at that time, like today, is the next version, the 20H2 version of Windows 10. So you had to be in the fast ring. So that's kind of a high bar of entry for a lot of people right there. And then you also had to you have to make sure you have Windows 10 Pro, right? Because it needs Hyper-V. So the big thing that changed this time is that now everything is available through the store. If I remember correctly, and I could be getting this wrong, but I think the way this worked before was you downloaded one of the two things you need from the store and one of the two things you need from the web. And the two things you need are the Microsoft Emulator application and then the Windows 10X image, right? So they've updated the emulator. They've updated the image. They're both available through the store. They're both free. They're both available to anybody. You don't have to be on an Insider build, but you do have to have Windows 10 Pro. So that's the caveat. Just remember that. If you want to take a look at Windows 10X, dual screen, emulated on your current computer, you can do it now. And it's, if you're interested in it, I'd say it's worth doing. The performance isn't great, but you can sign in with your Microsoft account. The easiest way to do that is to sneak in through an app. I had trouble. I tried to sign in through Edge. It doesn't give you that sign-in possibility. There's no setup in the beginning. So if you just sign into one of the apps, it will ask if you want to do it for everything or just for the apps. You can say everything, and then you're in with your account, and it survives reboots and all that. So kind of a fun way to see where Windows 10X is at.
Nice. And your app of the week, of course. People might think that you will become an Ori and the Will of the Wisps fanatic, but no.
It's a slightly more violent game. So if you're familiar with Call of Duty and if you're familiar with the way video gaming has gone over the past couple of years, you know that Battle Royale is a big thing. PUBG, why am I forgetting the names of the most popular games on the planet? Because I play Call of Duty. Who cares? Anyway, the point is with Black Ops, what is it? Say it again.
Fortnite.
Yes, Fortnite, that thing. So, as an adult and not a child, I
you really have a block. I think you're blocking.
He does.
Yeah, that thing. Whatever it is. Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which is the previous game, had a battle royale mode called Blackout, which kind of it was well received, but it didn't really take over the world.
It didn't
part of the
have
reason
a
was you had
battle
to have
bus.
Call of Duty. What's that?
Didn't have a battle bus. You need a battle bus.
A battle bus, that was the problem?
That's the problem.
Okay, that's possible. I think the problem was you had to pay for it. So you had to get Black Ops 4, which was $60, right? So this time around, they're doing something pretty incredible. So for the current version of Call of Duty, which is called Modern Warfare again, they have just released this week something called Warzone. And Warzone is it's actually two different game modes that take place on the same Battle Royale style map. So there's a Battle Royale game, as you would expect. Supports up to 150 gamers. Will soon support up to 200. That's 3 to 4 times as many as these other games. It doesn't matter what their names are. It's crossplay. It has a lot of elements from classic Call of Duty maps of the past, which is kind of amazing. That's really cool. It's free. And the downside is it's humongous. Wow. So if you already bought Call of Duty Modern Warfare, this thing is like a 12 to 22 gigabyte download. That's pretty typical these days for an update. But if you don't, you basically have to download the standalone version of Call of Duty Warzone, which again is free, but it's going to be like 100 gigabytes.
Wow.
It's a big game.
But I love it that it's free. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it looks great. If you're familiar with the graphics in Modern Warfare, it has that, modern kind of realistic look to it. I played twice and I've done poorly. I don't want to talk about that too much, but I'm not really a battle royale guy. But there is a second game mode. Like I said, the second game mode is kind of interesting. It's called Plunder, and it's kind of like a cash-based thing. And I don't mean like literal cash, like you have to buy stuff to play, but there's in-game cash. And so everything that you can do to advance in the game, whether it's kill streaks or weapons or whatever progression system, occurs through like finding plunder essentially, or cash in the game. And it's a team game. It has respawn, which is very unusual for
usually
this type
you're
of game.
Dead,
And actually, yeah. So actually, one cool thing about the battle royale mode is if you die, you are sent to a gulag, and you can have one-on-one. You can have one-on-one fights with other people, and if you win, you get back in the game.
That's not a bad idea.
If you lose, you can stay there and you can throw rocks at the people who are still playing.
This is the most violent thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
this is horrific. I'm just
I know, it's excellent. So, yeah. It's free. Did I mention it was free?
It's free.
It's free.
No, it's going to be huge.
I think you said free.
It's going to be big. It comes out today, right?
It's free.
Or yesterday it came out.
It is. Yeah. It is available now. Yeah. And I spent the better part of yesterday downloading this thing.
Wow.
So, factor that into your... And if you're familiar with these kinds of games, they all have like an island and you kind of parachute in or whatever. It is just like that. But the island itself is much, much bigger. And it incorporates all these different. It's humongous, and it's 300 points of interest. It's.
I don't care about
really,
that. Can I dance after I wax somebody?
Well, based on what you can do, I don't know.
You
about
can make
dancing,
up your own new dance. Yeah.
Yeah, Black Ops 4 has dancing, and I hate that. So yeah, probably. I think they're going to give the people
what
Fortnite.
They want. I have a Fortnite T-shirt I wear to the gym that has all the different dance moves on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Enterprise. There's no dancing in Enterprise. Enterprise pick of the week, Mary Jo Foley.
There's no dancing, but there is free.
Free.
Wow.
Free as in free forever. The new free tier for Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Cosmos DB is Microsoft's NoSQL multi-model cloud native database. Try saying that fast.
Wow.
They announced it at Build 2017. There were a couple free offers, like if you want to test your Cosmos DB application, you could do it for free or free for 30 days. But as of late last week, you now have an option to use a completely free tier, and not just for testing. You can use it for development testing and running small production workloads. So there are details on Microsoft's site about this, but users get the first 400 RUs, request units, and 5 gigs of storage and throughput free each month for the lifetime of the account. So I can tell you, my Twitter feed lit up on this guy because a lot of people have been like, yeah, Azure Cosmos DB sounds really cool, but it's really expensive, or I'm kind of a smaller company and I don't think it's really for me. So I think a lot of people are going to be kicking the tires using this new free tier.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think I remember you talking at the event last week about
this.
Yes.
Yep.
Why would someone want a database without SQL?
No SQL is an actual benefit.
He says semi-facetious.
Yeah, it's actual benefit. This was Azure East. Just collapsed.
I did. I talked about this at Worldwide Technology. On March 3rd, I just happened to look at the Azure status page, and Azure US East, which is one of Microsoft's biggest regions and most important regions, it was red flags all the way down. Like the whole thing was gone. All compute, networking, storage, it was showing problems, which you almost never see that, right? Yeah. So I was like, oh man, people must be screaming on Twitter. So I looked, nope, nobody was screaming. A couple people were like, hey, what's going on, Azure? But nobody was really screaming. This was down for 6 hours.
Wow.
I know.
You should have told Twitter about it, because people who don't use Azure could have started like a pitchfork campaign.
I did. I did actually. I put it on Twitter, and I got a lot of tweets on it.
Of course. I told you the cloud was a bad idea.
This is why I use Google.
Yeah.
I know.
This is why I put my stuff in a mattress.
Exactly. But what was really interesting about this was Microsoft did, to their credit, do a post-mortem on this and published it. What happened was their automation control system for temperature went down in one place in their data center, and it took everything down, right? Because if it's too hot in the data center, systems just start shutting themselves down, right? And VMs were shutting themselves down. Storage hardware was going offline, so people couldn't connect to storage. And Microsoft did find the source of the problem. They got things cooled down. Then they had to power cycle everything through. And some machines didn't automatically recover, so they had to reset those. So I published this because I'm like, okay, why did no one complain? This is very interesting, right? And I asked people, did it affect you? And people said, yeah, for a few minutes, or maybe it, one guy said 6 minutes or something. So I was kind of theorizing, is it because people have finally figured out they need to have redundancy and backup plans in place so that things automatically fail over, possibly to a different geography, hopefully? Or as Hal Barrett...
Isn't that what happens with Azure? If you can't get through to your preferred location, doesn't it automatically fail over to whatever choice number 2 is?
If you set that up, it does for yourself, right? But
I really don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, Hal Barrett, he used to work at Microsoft, and then he went to AWS. He noted a lot of the cloud companies now kind of weigh this, like how public should we be about this? Because if you're too public, you set everybody off. If you're not that public, people say you're hiding something. But what a number of cloud vendors are doing now is they're privately contacting people who are affected. So if somebody pings them, they'll say, okay, we're going to DM you, or we're going to send this to your dashboard and tell you what to do or what's going on. So maybe a lot of these outages are going to start moving kind of into this private sphere. Instead of people just like flipping out on Twitter, it'll be more kind of damage control being done privately, one-on-one, maybe.
That's too adult. I think it should all be on Twitter.
Yeah, it makes it more fun to watch people completely freaking out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but this was very interesting because when I looked at it, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be one heck of a day, right? And it wasn't.
It wasn't.
No.
Isn't that cool?
I know. Yep.
There was something we did bring back from St. Louis, and it wasn't coronavirus, as far as I can tell.
Not yet.
No, it's been a week, right? I think we're all right.
Isn't it like 2 to 9 days? I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we
just
still
saying.
Just
cross
saying.
your fingers.
Stay there. You stay over there, Paul.
Face.
Yeah. But no, Mary Jo and I tried a beer we liked a lot.
We did.
I'm actually thrilled to see this on the list.
Yeah, I was surprised how much I liked this beer. So we had a nice beer tasting after our event that WWT set up for us. And one of the breweries was O'Fallon, which is local to St. Louis. In fact, located very close to WWT. They brought a beer with them called what's it called? Barrels?
Barrels Salted
Barrel
Pretzel.
Salted pretzel. Right. The barrels is part of the name. Barrel Salted Pretzel. This beer tastes like a salted pretzel. It really does.
It's salty.
It's an amber lager that's made with toasted malt, and then they put Himalayan salt in it, and it really I was like, oh yeah, it's really tasty. Like I could drink a lot of that, especially with a tofu dog. It would be like a nice pairing.
I'm sorry,
Very
what
nice
did you say? A tofu dog?
It's called a tofu pup, but
Oh no,
they exist. A nice pretzel beer and your dog. It would be a great pairing. Only 5%. The problem is you have to be in St. Louis to get it because they don't brew it at the brewery. You have to go to their tap house to get it. But I would just say if you are in St. Louis, you might want to check out O'Fallon. I was very impressed by this. And they also made a stout. Did you have the stout too, Leo?
I did. It was good.
Oatmeal cookie. It tastes like an oatmeal cookie.
The oatmeal cookie. And apparently it's... So it has on the label Dave's Oatmeal Cookies, which apparently is a famous oatmeal cookie in St. Louis, and right up there with the toasted ravioli. And I said, well, are the cookies in there? She said, no, but we use the same flour. Okay, fine. Or whatever, the same oats. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So
it tastes just
but it was it was a good stout.
Yeah,
but I bet it would be good to dip the cookie in it.
Oh, now you're talking. Or a toasted ravioli. Maybe not.
Oh boy!
No, we were both Mary Jo and I were a little afeared that because St. Louis is famous for Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser, that's kind of all we'd be able to get is Bud. But O'Fallon's and a number of the breweries, in fact, they had 2 microbreweries at this event, are spin-offs. When InBev bought Budweiser, a number of the brewmasters and others went and started their own microbrewery. So there's actually quite a vital little microbrewery.
Yeah.
So they're like baby InBevs.
Yeah, well, they're not owned by InBev. They're.
No.
Oh yeah,
like I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. I think I can do better.
They're baby buds.
They're baby buds.
That's
baby buds. Yeah. And I think again, this is kind of the cool thing about WWT. They're St. Louis proud.
They are.
And I think at least a couple of these. In fact, I think the one we tried invested in by WWT founders. So yeah, it's an interesting story. So we should mention WWT is sponsored. They took us out there for a special event, which we were glad we could open to our listeners. We saw a lot of people, including Uncle Bick from the chat room, was there. It was a lot of fun to see you all. Thank you for coming out for that. And in a couple of years, when COVID-19's gone, we'll do that again.
Exactly. When 1/3 of humanity has been wiped out and travel is way cheaper.
It's a lot easier to get around. Yeah. I feel like we're just kind of skating in under the wire with some of these events. It's like, okay, can we do one more? One more. Yeah. Do one more. Mary Jo Foley is safely ensconced at allaboutmicrosoft.com. where she writes all about Microsoft all the time. Paul Thurrott is in the lower Lehigh Valley, where he's also, basically there's no one else there either. He's on his own little estate, and occasionally people like Richard come over and visit. You'll find Paul's work at thurrott.com and his book, The Field Guide to Windows 10, is at leanpub.com. Richard Campbell, thank you for joining us from Run as Radio and .NET Rocks. It was great to have Richard, even though he did not bring whiskey.
Well, it's kind of hard to travel with that, but
I guess. Next week, we're going to do the reveal of the brand new Xbox from GDC. Yeah. Microsoft's decided to stream it instead of having an event, an in-person event, and we will take advantage of that. It'll be right smack dab in the middle of the show. We do this show at 1800 UTC. You notice, by the way, I've moved the clock to UTC in protest against this.
Oh, because you said 1800 at the start of the show, and I was wondering what you meant by that.
Well, the insanity of summertime, wintertime is driving me nuts. Yeah. Everybody nuts. Yeah. Yep. And I think we're just going to,
set Weintraub, keep it on the thing that never changes.
Keep it on the thing that never changes. And then I will have to say, for those of you in the U.S., that's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. But for everybody else should know, it's 1800 UTC. That's our new time because we are in summertime now here in the States. We'll be back next Wednesday at 1800. I hope you will too. You can watch us do it live at twit.tv/live. There's audio and video streams there. If you're doing that, join us in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. They're very strict in there. They kicked me out because I was off topic. So, Scooter X says, Leo, we're talking about Windows right now, if you don't mind. Oh, okay. If you want
what were you talking about, Linux?
It's just, I try to get, Linux would be so much better if you guys would just switch.
Bounce.
Boing, I'm gone.
Like the sound of a door slamming.
I'm gone.
No.
Well, you know what Winston Churchill said? No, I don't either. No, you know what Winston Churchill said? He said, "As a fanatic is somebody who can't stop." What is it? Oh crap! I forgot. A fanatic is somebody who can't stop. I wrote it down because I thought it was
can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. It's kind of that. It is kind of that. A fanatic is someone who won't change his mind and can't change the subject. Mm-hmm. I am a Linux fanatic. Good. It's good, isn't it? Now that I've ruined it.
I'm surprised there aren't more Winston Churchill quotes.
Boy, is he good. I heard that and
the most
I'm writing
quotable
that
person
down.
in the history of mankind.
There's a new book by our friend Eric Larson. You liked the Devil in the White City.
I know. I bought it.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited. What is it called?
Oh, really?
The Vial?
Tell me.
So this guy got access to Winston Churchill's daughter's diary for only the second time in history.
Oh,
He's
wow.
the second person that's ever been able to read it. So if you thought
I love
every
Devil in
single
White City.
fact about this guy
too.
was ever known.
Yeah.
Larson has made a career of writing history, but it's novelist. Right. It's not novelistic. It's absolutely factual, but it's such a good writer that it comes to life.
Awesome.
It's called The Splendid
and even
and the
topics
Vile.
You think, well, I don't, do I really need to know about this boat sinking? Or, he turns even topics that you might not think you're interested in into interesting
You're
topics.
talking about Dead Wake, his book about the Lusitania. Yeah.
Yeah.
This new one is about it's a saga of Churchill, family, and defiance during the Blitz. It's funny because I've been looking for a good Churchill book.
Yeah, I just watched that recent movie. Actually.
Yes, that's why. The movies are so good. There were two good movies about him. I said, I got to read more about Churchill and FDR because such great leaders, not so long ago. We really had we spawned some great leaders, and it feels like
I think books about great leaders right now are necessary.
They are.
It's nice to know it's possible.
Remember, it can be like this.
And the funny thing is, Churchill was reviled. He was a hero during the war, and then he got thrown out and was reviled for a long time.
Oh, he was reviled at the beginning of the war too. They weren't so sure of this guy.
Oh yeah. Paul, Mary Jo, thank you so much. What fun it has been. We put the show on the website as soon as we're done cleaning it up. And this one won't take much cleaning up, so we should get it out pretty quickly. You'll find it at twit.tv/WW. There's also a YouTube channel. And you can also subscribe. That's really the best way to get it. If you go to your favorite podcast application and subscribe, you're likely to get it before anyone else does, thanks to CacheFly. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you next week for a big Xbox Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.